Welcome to the Tuesday night opening lines NFL show here on Odds HQ, odds.com. In the house, I'm joined by my man, Rob Bebenek, who continues to throw fire. A 5-1 week plus 3.85 units. Jesus, Bebsy. 22 wins, 7 losses, 75.9%, plus 13.73 units. ROI plus 47.34%. Average line minus 114. Bebsy, welcome to the show.
I'm running out of piles to put my money.
Wow. I had a good week until, watching the Saints and check down Breeze in action made me so angry. And I can't believe I was sitting there. Why is my money on the Saints? What a terrible, terrible decision. I went 0-2 last night and then completely screwed over my week. So I go 7-6, up 0.05 units. Oh, God.
Are we on the Herbert wagon? I mean, this kid has just been balling out. Even when they're losing, the kid plays great.
He's playing very well. I really
love this guy. But, hey, he was the reason. He was the X factor. I mean, again, I admire the way you dive into something. But my indecisiveness in that game was Herbert. Obviously the Saints, they're a better football team, but Herbert was the far better quarterback.
Yes, he was by far the best quarterback on the field. I'm now at 23-23, 50%, down 2.9 units, ROI minus 6.30%, average line minus 112. Very, very disappointing. Shout out to all the cappers joining us right now. We got Viper NB in the house. We got Nick B, Buzznuts, Nut Flush Allen. Dennis Garcia says if Justin Herbert were the quarterback of the Bills, they'd win the Super Bowl this year. That's from our Dennis Garcia. Beach Boss in the house. 6,500 today, Beach Boss. I love it. I'm about to get paid from the Braves. Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about the losing streak or getting paid or anything like that. But I'm on the Braves' first 5 full game. Mr. Know-It-All, my man Leo in the house as well. Milo says Steelers again this week. Nate Shawhammer ready to work. Al Cervic in the house. Oh, and we got Mr. Know-It-All's looks here coming into the week. Atlanta plus 3.5, Cleveland plus 3.5, Baltimore minus 7.5, Miami minus 8, Packers minus 2.5, Rams minus 3.5. And Dennis says Herbert is better than Breeze. 7 was too many last night, without a doubt.
Yeah, pretty hard to argue that.
Yeah. Nasty Nate joining us in the house. And we have special guest, the Whale Capper, joining us in a bit. He's really focused on the late games in this card, which is perfect because that will allow Bebsy, myself, and these great cappers in the chat to break down these first games. There's Alvin Smith ready to get to work. Well, let's do exactly that. Bebsy, first off, we're not going to sit around here and slap ass, but great work. Very impressed. Let's keep it rolling, Bebsy. Let's keep it rolling. We're going to start
Bengals. I haven't slapped in months, to be honest with you.
It's COVID, man.
I missed it. I miss getting a good pat on the bum. But you know what? We're getting through it. We're getting through it together. But let's get into these games there, bud.
Let's do it. Bengals, Colts. This is going to be a fun one. We have the Bengals sitting as 8-point favorites, opening at 8-point favorites, but now we have 7.5s on the board. Princess C says Canada's favorite haters, and Mr. Know-It-All says 5-0 Braves. Finally, being on a little rough playoff stretch. Changing that tonight, baby. God, I need the money. Bengals, Colts. We have 8 and 7.5s on the board. Also, this total sitting at 47.5 or 48 for Bengals, Colts. At this point, 76% of the cash is on the Colts. 65% of the tickets are on the Colts. And an interesting spot with the total, 71% of tickets are on the over, but some big bets have come in on the under. Big bets have come in on the under. So 70% of the money is on the under. Joe Burrow and the 1-3-1 Bengals, 0-2-1 on the road, was sacked 7 times, forced into a pair of turnovers in that 27-3 loss at Baltimore. That was one of my losses last week. Burrow completed 19 of 30 passes for 183 yards, threw a pick, lost a fumble. He's been getting hit hard, Bebsy. He's been sacked 22 times in 5 games. Mixon, who rushed for 151 yards last week, 59 yards on 24 carries. Last week against the Jags, they amassed 505 yards. Against the Ravens, just 205 yards. Most of that was in garbage time. A field goal at 32 seconds was the only reason why they didn't get shut out. Defensive tackle DJ Reader was carted off the field in the third quarter with a knee injury. A.J. Green missed most of the second half with a hamstring injury. Defensive tackle Sam Hubbard left with an elbow injury. John Ross, Mackenzie Alexander remain out. Now let's talk about these Colts. Colts defense came in allowing the fewest passing yards, points, and led the NFL in interceptions, and the Browns put up 385 yards on them, an average of 5.3 yards per play in the 32-23 win over the Colts. Dennis Garcia in our chat, he said, look who the Colts have been playing against. This is the first time they're going up against an elite offense, and they lose. Rivers goes 21 of 33 for 243 yards, 2 picks. Jonathan Taylor runs 12 times for 57 yards. T.Y. Hilton, a little better. He's not looked like himself all year. 6 passes he catches for 69 yards. Autry left in the first half with an ankle injury, their defensive tackle. Safety Julian Blackman left with a groin injury. And we saw what this defense looks like without Darius Leonard. Not very strong. This is a fun one to get the show started, Bebsy. Bengals, Colts, take it away.
I mean, you said a lot of what I wanted to say there. This Colts team, obviously, they're not the same without Darius Leonard. It is very apparent. And yeah, I mean, was it Garcia that said this team hasn't faced anybody yet? It's true. And they finally came up against a surging Browns team. Not a team I want to put money on because they're still the Browns to me, but they are looking good. And yeah, Indy looked bad last week. Now, the team they're playing this week looked horrendous. And I wonder if those hits are starting to take their toll with Burrow. It's hard to say after 1 week playing one of the best teams in football, but yeah, he didn't look the same. He looked like he's been getting thumped a few times, and he's like, hey, I got to make a career out of this game. I can't keep taking these hits and getting blasted, which has been part of his success early on. So for me, this is a real tough spot because up until last week, we kind of had Burrow the backdoor cover man, and then he just got destroyed. But also at the same time, the Colts really got humbled last week. So I don't even know which way I lean in this one, to be honest with you. It's a lot of points for a team that's coming off not a very good game, but they're playing against a team who had a worse week. So I don't know. This is a difficult one for me staring at it out the gates.
It is. I have to lean towards the Colts completely shutting them down. That would be a lean. But then I guess we need to wait to see if Darius Leonard is in the house.
I mean, he's so integral to what they do on defense. And he's also the heartbeat. Like he's that emotional leader out there. So if he's not there, it's just a different football team. Now they're still going against, let's face it, Burrow, who has played better than expectations, even for a first overall pick so far. He's been really carrying an awful football team. And if Mixon can't get going, what do they have? And A.J. Green's hurt again. Surprise, surprise. Like, this is just Bilal, this is a stay away game for me too, man.
Well, if this keeps going down, like if Leonard's in the game and you can get a 7, maybe let's just see what the Colts first half is right now. If you wanted the Colts first half, it's a 5. It actually opened at 4.5, so I don't know. At this point, no move on this Colts spot. Rob T says Colts have shown they can play defense Bengals have not. And that is true, but the Chiefs did control that game, and Rivers did not look good. Maceo says, what was Bebsy's record last week? It was 5-1 plus 3.85 units. Those 6 games, he was on Panthers +3. He lost on Chiefs first half -7. He cashed Cardinals first half -3.5. That was a double up for me. He cashed Steelers first game full game -7. Ravens first half -7. And Vikings team total over 23.5. 5-1. There's Robert Allen in the house. That's Bengals Colts. Let's move on. This is a very interesting spot here. Falcons, Vikings. Atlanta, Minnesota. Here we go. Oh, I'm on first half. Sorry, let's move over to full game. Atlanta, Minnesota. This total opened at 57, already being bet down 54.5. The leading indicator books have taken it to. It's 55s across the board. Minnesota at 3.5-point favorites. There are a couple threes on the board that are very juiced. Very juiced. And then in this Vikes spot, the early money is all over the Vikings. The early tickets are all over the Vikings. 92% of the cash, 77% of the tickets. And it's another situation where most of the tickets are on the over, but big bets have come in on the under. All right. Falcons lost last week 23-16 at home to the Panthers, dropped to 0-5 for the first time since 1997, and fired Dan Quinn and Dimitroff, their general manager. Playing without Julio Jones, Matt Ryan held to 21-37 for a season low 226 yards. Falcons rushed for 166 yards, so 6.6 yards average carry. Gurley, 121 yards on 14 carries. But the injuries in the secondary continue to hurt the Falcons. Cornerback Kendall Sheffield, he missed the first 3 games of the season with a foot injury. He left the field in the final minute of the first half with an injured right ankle. He didn't return. Safety Jalen Hawkins remains out, and Tack McKinley just can't get right. He finally got back in the lineup, and groin injury in the first quarter did not return. Vikings lost in heartbreaking fashion, 27-26 at Seattle on Sunday night. I cashed my first half and full game team total overs. Bebsy cashed his full game team total over. Cousins, 27-39, 249 yards, 2 second half TD passes to Thielen. Madison rushed for a career high, 112 yards after Dalvin Cook went down with a groin injury. Dalvin Cook expected to be out of the lineup this week. The decision by Zimmer will be debated. If you look at percent of winning and all those stats, it was basically a wash. So it just becomes how you wanted to handle the situation personally. It was a pretty even situation. I've been thinking about it. I don't know. I lean towards a more passive approach in those situations, just not to give momentum to the opposition. So I probably kick the field goal, but it's sort of a safe play. Cornerbacks Chris Boyd and Holden Hill remain out. So does wide receiver K.J. Osborne. The first game of the Falcons without their head coach and general manager. Take it away, Bebsy.
I mean, that's my big apprehension with this game, because you look at it and you see -3, -3.5. It almost feels ludicrous the way the Falcons have been playing. But is this where they turn it around? Is this were they not playing for Quinn? Will they show up this week? Because on paper, this Falcons team is not bad. They're certainly not as bad as they've been playing, and they've been playing atrocious. So is this the week they turn it around? Is this the week they show that they can win without Dan Quinn? But I always felt like Dan Quinn was at least respected in that building, and I think that had a lot to do with him coming back. So it's hard to say, because quite frankly, the Vikings have played well. We knew they were going to put up points against a weak Seahawks defense, and they did it even though they lost Dalvin Cook. But that's just a massive, massive loss to that offense. That's, already without their offensive coordinator from last year, already without Stephon Diggs, trying to get it going. They got it going, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were riding Cook. So can Madison do what Cook's been doing? He certainly looked good in this week. But again, it's another tough spot. Like when this first opened up, I looked at it and I was like, man, I love Minnesota. This is a juicy play. But the more and more I look at it, and especially if the Falcons can turn it on after the departure of Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff, then maybe this is the week they come back. I don't think it's quite like the Houston situation where Houston was playing a far worse team than them, and they were, without a guy they hated. I don't think Dan Quinn was hated in Atlanta.
I agree. This does feel different, and I had the same approach sort of to this game when I first saw it. I was like, "Ooh, this is a nice spot for the Vikings." The longer I looked at it, the more I'm close to moving towards the Falcons. Now, they could use Julio Jones. That is clear. Nutflush says people always bet on what they see last. Fade the Vikings. If you wonder why, these books make so much money, you're going to have so much money on the Vikings here.
Well, yeah, it's all coming in on Vikings. And recency bias will kill you if that's all you focus on.
Without a doubt. So I guess in saying that right now,
who's the interim coach for Atlanta right now?
It's their DC. They brought up their defensive coordinator. Let me just pull that up. Defensive. Here we go. It is Raheem Morris. Oh, no, the secondary coach, Raheem Morris, will serve as defensive coordinator. Sorry, what the hell am I saying? Yes, no, interim head coach, Raheem Morris. Sorry, reading a couple things at the same time there. So Raheem Morris has moved up. There's always a bump or a boost that first game with a new coach. And Viper MB says, pass aside, the over is probably the best bet here.
I mean, I kind of want to agree with Viper on this one. Both of these teams have proven to be able to put up points. And I feel like that over is just going to get hammered.
It's going down quickly. It's going down, and money's been coming in on the over. Well, actually, more money's coming on the under. More tickets are coming on the over. Let's make that clear. And it's dropped 2 points from the Bet365 opener, and the indicator books have it going down further. All right. A tricky second game on the card. I tell you what, though. I'm leaning Falcons.
Yeah, so am I, but we did this last year, and we did this to start this year. When are we going to stop believing in the Vikings or the Falcons? What do they have to do to make us hate them?
No, I hear you. It was a big mistake we made last year.
And this year, both of us thought that this was a team that can, rise from the ashes. And quite frankly, they've been just utter shit.
Alvin Smith says, this is a game, Jimmy, you stay off. This is a game you stay off. Robert Allen says, Vikings defense has actually started playing good last couple games. Doesn't show on paper yet, but they're getting better on D. All right, no moves through the first 2 games of the card. Let's move on to Broncos, Patriots. This is a tricky spot. We don't need to spend too much time on it because there is no line. And understandably so, because the 2 most important players, well, everyone knows it's Belichick, that's the most important, but the 2 most important players for the Patriots are in COVID. So let's talk about that. Cam Newton tested positive 2 days before the matchup with the Chiefs. He was forced to sit out. And now we have Stephon Gilmore as well. So Stephon Gilmore posted on Twitter that he hasn't experienced any symptoms. And that was a week ago. So if Newton doesn't play, obviously Hoyer and Stidham are bad, and they're different in how bad they are. I would, if Hoyer is in there, I like unders. With Stidham, I think there's pick sixes. I have no faith or trust in Stidham. I'd rather Hoyer just play conservative, play poorly. Both struggled against the Chiefs. Hoyer got pulled late in the third quarter following a pick and a fumble, and Stidham threw a touchdown pass, but also had a pair of picks. New England turned the ball over 4 times against the Chiefs in that 26-10 loss 2 weeks ago. That's the most it's had. Most turnovers it's had since 5 in 2008. Julian Edelman, offensive tackle Isaiah Wynn, guard Shaq Mason, and defensive tackle Adam Butler are all questionable on the injury report. And their offensive line's a mess right now. So starting center David Andrews, injured reserve for at least another week. We just talked about Shaq Mason, who left with the calf injury. Left tackle Isaiah Wynn started all 4 games this season, also has a calf injury. So they're a mess. And then we get to these Broncos. So the big point here is that Fangio says Locke will be ready to start for the Broncos this week. So we won't need to see Rippon again. But the Broncos look like a strong team against a terrible Jets team. 37-28. Chubb had 2.5 sacks. Broncos had both a 100-yard receiver and a 100-yard rusher last week for the first time since January 3rd, 2016. Melvin Gordon, 23 rushes for 107 yards. Tim Patrick, 6 catches for 113 yards. And Denver hasn't won in New England since 2006. Dennis Garcia says under at anything over 37. That's an interesting look. We don't need to spend too much time on this spot, Bebsy. Anything to help us lead into what we may or may not do come information on Newton and Gilmore?
Well, I like Dennis Garcia's take. I don't know if 37 is something I'd jump on, but I can imagine this, if it happens, coming in at somewhere around 40. And under 40 is a nice, easy play. Again, you said it. A ton of it has to do with whether or not Cam Newton's playing. I feel like he should be back at this point. It seems like the typical incubation period or sickness period of this or whatever is less than he has tested positive for. So it really depends on, if those guys are coming out and playing. If Gilmore's playing, if Newton's playing, that's going to sway this big time. No matter what this comes out as, I'm probably going to lean Patriots, but I like Dennis Garcia's look. If this comes out, the under is probably going to be the play because I think they'll come in conservative with it, and then it'll get bet down immediately. So if you can see this coming out early and it's something around 40, I'm with Dennis Garcia to take the under.
All right, that makes sense. Okay, let's move on to games where we have lines. Next, we'll do Washington Football Club at the Giants. Giants open up as 3.5-point favorites. That's gone down to 3. It's even gone down to 2.5 at a couple books, and the 3s are at plus money. This total opened up at 44.5, and it's dropped to 43.5 or 43. Let's see what the ticket situation here is. We have a ton of cash, almost all the cash on the over early in the week. A little over half the tickets, but almost all of the cash. Oh, wait, sorry, I take that back. Sorry. All the tickets, over 90% of the tickets and the cash on the over, and yet it's dropped 1.5 points. Very interesting. And then 55% of the tickets are on the Giants, but some big bets have come in. Some big cash bets have come in on the Redskins. Washington Football Club. Washington 1-4, 0-2 on the road, going up against the 0-5 Giants. Washington coming off that ugly 30-10 loss at home to the Rams. Not only was Haskins inactive, demoted from starter to third on the depth chart. He wasn't even at the stadium. He had some sort of stomach issue, which who knows at this point if it's real. Kyle Allen replaced Haskins, went 9 for 13 for 74 yards before he hurt his arm on that 7-yard TD, injured on a hit from Jalen Ramsey. He looked okay. Rivera said that Allen could have gone back in, but he kept him out of an abundance of caution. He's expected to start this week. Smith came in for his first game in 2 years, went 9 for 17 for 37 yards. They couldn't move the ball. Antonio Gibson ran 11 times for 27 yards, and Chase Young returned after missing a game with a groin injury. Linebacker Cole Holcomb, cornerback Greg Stroman, tight end Marcus Bow remain out of the lineup. In a game overshadowed by Prescott's injury, the Giants could move the ball against a horrible Cowboy defense. Daniel Jones goes 20 for 33 for 222 yards in that 37-34 loss. Slayton was given out on our Sunday show, and I'll have to go back and see. One of our low baggers gave out Slayton prop over 55 yards. He goes for 129 yards. Devontae Freeman ran 17 times for 60 yards, and they lose linebacker Lorenzo Carter to a ruptured Achilles during that loss to the Cowboys. Redskins. Sorry. Washington football team. Giants. Take it away, Bebsy.
Am I crazy to like Washington in this game? I just think that the Giants are obviously not a very good football team, and moving the ball against Dallas does not impress me. That's not something that I find appealing. I'm not going to look at that and be like, oh my God, this offense has come alive. No, they were playing Dallas. Their defense is terrible. They're not going to face that same soft defense this week. Again, if there's anything that's good about Washington, it's their front seven. And what do we know about Danny Dimes? He does not handle the pressure well. He loves to fumble. He loves to throw picks. He doesn't protect the ball. I'm really leaning towards Washington in this game, especially if you can get them with a couple of points in hand. It just seems to me like this line is set with a recency bias with how the Giants looked last week, and I don't think you can put any value into a team putting up points against a brutal Cowboys team.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I was also told, and I don't know how much merit there is to this because I didn't see it reported anywhere, but the reason Haskins was benched was because apparently he was bragging about his personal stats after the loss, and Rivera wanted to teach him a lesson. Whether that's that's true or not, I don't know, but it doesn't take a juggernaut of an offense to score on Washington, and I just think Danny Dimes is going to struggle against this front seven.
Not Flush Allen says in this game, I think the sack prop has value. Danny Dimes gets sacked all day, but don't trust Washington's offense. That's an interesting look from our Not Flush Allen. Rob T says Washington going to be all over Daniel Jones. I don't trust Washington's offense. Under on Giants team total makes more sense. Very, very interesting. It is now 21-10 Titans. 21-10.
That's an interesting look. What is the Giants team total?
I'm going to grab it right now. Almost halftime, though, and we're seeing the same thing we saw in baseball. These teams that have these COVID issues and breaks seem to come back chomping at the bit. All right, let's grab this team total here for the New York Giants. Team props. The team total for the Giants is sitting at 22.5. What do you think?
I think that's Rob T might have a nice look here.
Dennis Garcia says Giants are the better team. What do you think about that? You think the Giants are better than the Washington Football Club?
I mean, you're just kind of comparing two different kinds of dog shit at this point. So, sure, if you want to say that, fine. I mean, there's an argument both ways. I don't think either team is good. There's no position group on the Giants that scares me. They might have a little more talent sprinkled across the board, but at least Washington has one very good position group, and then nothing else.
Washington Giants. No move yet from Bebsy or I, but I have you know what? I guess I should take the question marks of Washington. If I could have got that 3.5, I would have found that interesting. I don't know why I certainly don't want to sit here on Sunday watching this game. All right, let's move on to Ravens-Eagles. Ravens-Eagles, let's see what we are dealing with from spreads and totals. No wonder the whale capper was like, get through the 1 o'clock games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here and I don't even want to talk about them.
But this is a little more exciting here. Ravens, Eagles. Baltimore opens up as 7-point favorites. That doesn't last long. Now, that was juiced to -120 at Bet365, but that's already moved to 7.5, and there are 8 on the board now. 8 on the board for the Ravens on the road at Philly. This total opened up at 47.5. It's now at 48. And Nut Flush Allen telling you put a small bet on Tannehill MVP. You will get great odds, and it's worth lunch money. Interesting look there from Nut Flush Allen. Let's see what the tickets and money is here in the Ravens-Eagles. We have all the money and all the cash. Very high. Now, it is Tuesday, so we don't want to dive too into these numbers, but 91% it says of cash on the Ravens, 88% of the tickets on the Ravens, and a ridiculous people are only betting overs in this game. Only betting overs. Herman Brito in the house. Thank you for joining us, Herman. Robert Allen says, I love the Eagles +8. Let's talk about the Ravens first. Coming off dominant 27-3 win at home over the Bengals. 18th straight game with a turnover. They sacked Joe Burrow 7 times. Jackson goes 19 for 37 for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. At 4-1, the Ravens matched their best start in team history. They ran for 161 yards, 46% on third downs. Marquise Brown caught 6 passes for 77 yards. And their linebacker, Otero Alaka, missed the second half with a knee injury. Defensive tackle Broderick Washington, wide receiver Chris Moore, and guard Tyree Phillips all remain out. For the Eagles, Wentz threw for 258 yards, 2 scores, and 2 picks in the Eagles' 38-29 loss at Pittsburgh. So it was an interesting game. I doubled up, so I lost the first half and cashed the full game. Bebsy cashed the full game. The Eagles were able to move the ball. At one point, they converted 10 straight third downs. It was confusing. Travis Fulgham caught 10 passes for 152 yards. Miles Sanders ran for 80 yards and 2 scores. It was their defense couldn't get stops. They allowed Chase Claypool. I mean, he's a great player, but this is a rookie second-round pick to catch for 3 touchdowns and run for another out of Abbey, BC. We're very proud of him up in the Pacific Northwest. Defense forced 1 punt after the first quarter. The Steelers converted 11 of 15 third downs. Wentz was sacked 5 times. And Lane Johnson carted to the locker room with a third quarter ankle injury. He's been dealing with ankle issues the whole time. Duke Riley left in the fourth quarter. Their linebacker with an undisclosed injury. Darius Slay's in concussion protocol. And Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson remain out of the lineup, as does Avonte Maddox. Do you agree with this market move towards the Ravens, Bebsy?
Yeah, I can see it because Phillies, again, they're dealing with injuries and injuries on top of injuries. But I feel like Wentz is now developing a bit of a rapport with Fulgham. Fulgham, am I saying that right? Fulgham. I just find it very difficult to bet against that Eagles defensive line right now. They have been great. It's not their fault. It's the secondary and the linebackers that aren't stepping up. And look, I think Claypool's the real deal. I was crushing on him hard on the draft. I thought he had Megatron-like skill set. I'm not calling him Megatron. I'm saying he is huge. He is fast. He is an impressive player. If you didn't pick him up in fantasy 2 weeks ago, you're not getting him now. But I can't very well back the Eagles in this, especially with the way the Ravens have played really outside of the Chiefs game. So I hate to say it, but it's another no play for me. I kind of lean Ravens because I just think they're all around better. But man, it's that Eagles defensive front, particularly the line, not the front 7, but the front 4, look great. They cause a lot of havoc. I think they'll give Lamar some trouble. And Wentz is, man, after playing horrendous to start the season, Wentz has got it together. He got his mojo back playing San Francisco. He played well again this week, despite, having a broken down O-line and having Fulgham as his top receiver.
What did you make of the way the Eagles were able to move the ball on the Steelers' defense? Do you think that this Eagles offense is getting stronger and stronger? Do you think the Steelers' defense is not as good as maybe we expected it to be?
I think, first of all, I think the Steelers' defense is great, and I do think that's a bit of an anomaly. But, man, Wentz, especially on third down, has been looking like the last 2 weeks, 2 weeks only, he has looked like the pre-injury MVP Wentz, where he was shifty, he's buying time in the pocket. He looks great. I didn't think he was going to be able to do what he did against that Pittsburgh Steelers front 7. But he was still looking fantastic. And you're right. If they could have shut down Claypool and that Steelers offense, they could have won that game. But who knows? Who knows if Wentz can keep this up? Especially without Lane Johnson now. But, man, he has put that team on his back for now.
I lost 1.4 units or more actually in that game because I lost 1.55 units in that game. I had the first half lost at minus 115, but I lost on the Carson Wentz over 14.5 rush yards. He got 11, and that was at 1.40 units. So at this point, I'm 23 and 23, but I've lost 3 prop bets this year, and that's so. I mean, whatever. It's a loss is a loss, and they all count. But I would be positive units, 23 and 20, had I not been making these prop bets. Sammy B in the house. Great to see you, Sammy B. And, a couple cappers. Herman Brito saying, Mr. Stay Away Bebsy. Look, when you're sitting 22 and 7, 75.9% up 13.73 units, you start I don't know. Winning begets winning. Hang around winners, you'll do more winning. And you start betting smarter. And there's a reason why Whale Capper wasn't like, oh, I love these 1 p.m. games. I need to be there at the start of the show. These are tricky.
Prince in the City wrote, what happens when Mr. Glass really gets hit, Bebsy? Yeah, you're right, Prince. Like, that's the thing. Wentz is one bad move away from going down again. We know he gets hurt a lot, but all I said was the last 2 weeks, he put the team on his back and looked like MVP Wentz, not Mr. Glass and Mr. Errant Throw Wentz. So, I don't know.
Taking hits.
You're right. He's an injury-prone QB. I don't know what else you want me to say to that.
But he was taking hits. He was taking hits. And getting up. And
I mean, he's still an NFL football player. He can take a hit, but sometimes you get folded up on.
We got our man Clint, star of the Die Hard MMA podcast, in the house. Clint, we already talked the Vikings game, but I'd love to hear how you are handling your Vikings this week. All right, let's move on to Browns-Steelers. Browns-Steelers is next up. This is going to be a lot of fun. Cleveland-Pittsburgh. Total opens up at 50, goes up to 51. Pittsburgh opens up at -4. They're now -3.5 point favorites. Let's see where the money is right now in this spot. Money pouring in on the over. Money and tickets pouring in on the over. And not a surprise because of the vividness. Well, let's not simplify it, but at this point, 69% of the cash, 56% of the tickets on the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield tosses a season-high 247 yards and 2 touchdowns against the NFL's number 1 defense in their 32-23 home win over the Colts on Sunday. And when I read and wrote 247 yards, I was like, really? That's a season-high. Interesting. 4-1, 1-1 on the road are these Browns going up against the undefeated Steelers, 4-0, 3-0 at home. Browns are 4-1 for the first time since 94, Bill Belichick's 4th season. Landry has 4 catches for 88 yards. Mayfield injures his ribs in the 4th quarter. X-rays came back negative. He says he's good to go this Sunday, but bruised ribs could be an issue against a tough Steelers defense. Kareem Hunt ran for 20 times for 72 yards, handling the Chubb absence well during this. Johnson 8 times for 32 yards. Myles Garrett got a 6 sack and a safety. Right guard Wyatt Teller strained his left calf in the first quarter, didn't return. Hubbard took a spot. Ronnie Harrison suffered a concussion, their safety. Rookie linebacker Jacob Phillips injured his knee in the second half, underwent an MRI. Defensive end Olivier Vernon left with a groin injury in the 4th quarter. They're all questionable this week. Defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi, linebacker Tay Davis, and safety Carl Joseph all remain out. And we get to the Steelers. So we talked about Claypool. I mean, he's the first Steeler player to score 4 times in the game since wide receiver Roy Jefferson did in 1968. First rookie since at least 1950 to catch 3 touchdowns and add another on the ground. The first Canadian to have 3 receiving touchdowns in one game since Joe Rooney of the Duluth Eskimos, October 23rd, 1927.
Joe Rooney from Duluth.
I had to look up the Duluth Eskimos. And
it's made up.
It's not made up. I had to look them up. That was 6 years before the Steelers were established. Roethlisberger goes 27-34, 239 yards. They convert 11 of 15 third downs. Ray McLeod rushes twice for 63 yards. Connor 15 times for 44 yards. And they nearly squandered that lead. I couldn't believe my eyes. there were times where the Eagles could get whatever they wanted against them. Marquise Pouncey, their center, foot injury. He's questionable. Guard David DeCastro left Sunday's game, abdominal injury. And Marcus Allen and Derek Watt remain out, linebacker and fullback. This is a very interesting spot. Take it away, Bebsy. Browns Steelers.
Al Cervic kind of beat me to what I was going to say. Please let the Browns hype train drive this line down. It's already taken it down a little bit. I wonder if sitting on this is the play because I want the Steelers. I'll take them at 3.5. I wouldn't mind them at 3. I love them at 2.5. But to me, this is listen. Old habits die hard in this game, and even when the Browns are good, and I know that hasn't been very often, but Pittsburgh just always has their number. And right now, Pittsburgh is just a better, healthier football team than the Browns. They're better on paper, top to bottom. And they are healthier than them right now. And saying it's a bit contrite to say that the Browns put up all these points against the number one offense. We know that's a skewed stat. First of all, because they were without their biggest playmaker. They were also without Malik Hooker, and they haven't really faced enough talent for me to call them the best yet. I think this Browns team is looking better. I think they are on the upswing. But I think this is a massive letdown spot for the Browns. So I'm taking the Steelers. The only question is, do I jump on it now or do I wait and, like Al Cervic said, see if this line comes down a bit more because people are getting a little too excited about the Brownies. They're good. I like where they're going, but you got to pump the brakes a little bit on them. And I just think the Steelers are a vastly superior team.
On Sunday, this opened up on Sunday night at 8:10 p.m. It opened up as a 4-point Browns dogs, and that was juiced towards the Steelers at -4. Within 10 minutes, money came in on the Steelers. It went to 4.5. So it was 4.5, and then Monday morning 4.5, and then at lunchtime, or even at 3 p.m. was the big move. 3 p.m. it moves to 3.5. And that's where it's been since 3 p.m. yesterday at 3.5, and it's been of the same juice. Viper MB says, I'm with Bebsy. I'll be on the Steelers for sure if it hits 3. I don't see it hitting 3.
Yeah, I feel like it's just get in on it now because it's probably not going to go any lower. And I'm still okay with 3.5.
Milo says Steelers double up. How could they possibly put it to 3? I think that if they put it to 3, massive bets. If they put it to 3, they'll be there for a minute because massive bets will come in. But Dennis Garcia says the correct line for this game is Pittsburgh -2.5, which means, as you know, we give 3 points to the home team on a neutral site. Browns would be half-point favorites. Sammy B says, love the Cleveland action coming in, taking Pitt all day. By the way, Bebsy, Sammy B here, Lowbagger in the chat, he's played at Steve's poker game.
Oh, hey now.
Yeah, he's played at Steve's poker game.
That's a dangerous or incredibly lucrative game.
He's done well at it. Those of you guys who remember Tim Steves from the draft show, we actually had Bebenek, Steves, and Whale Capper on the draft show. We're all going to be rolling on the show tonight. Al Cervic says, I'm already on Pittsburgh. D is going to be out for blood after the helmet incident. Of course, the Myles Garrett helmet incident, which Pittsburgh is playing down. Do you think that has any element in this spot? And Mr. Mister says Baker has busted ribs, I heard. Man, this is making me want to bet the Steelers right now.
Well, here's the other thing, too, is we see how the Browns look when everything is going nice. But when it's going poorly, we see Baker pout. He's a sucky baby. We've seen the sucky baby trench coat mustache look from him. He's just not a guy who handles adversity well. He's not a guy who I think can lead a team when they're getting pumped a little bit. So I mean, as much as I really enjoy the Browns looking good, because I do, I just feel bad for them. I feel bad for their fans. I want them to do well. I just think this is a massive letdown spot. I think the Steelers are a legitimate contender this year, and I think the Browns are still pretenders.
So, with that being said, do you want to move on the Steelers minus 3.5 right now?
I think I have to because common sense is going to take this one back up, don't you think?
I just think that half point is so crucial. I just would be shocked. Let's see what we could give you, and then we'll talk total here. Let's see what we could give you, though, in this exciting Browns-Steelers spot. It's 3.5. Actually, there's a 4 at Fox Bet. So it's 3.5s across the board, and they're all at minus 110. Bet America at minus 111, same with resortscasino.com. But while you're making a decision, Ixnizzle's Ohio's finest, man. Ixnizzle, low bagger in the chat, living in Cleveland, and he says, "Don't feel bad for us. We don't need pity." That's why we love Browns fans.
Sorry, my pity is you know what? You got to love Browns fans because they had a parade when they went 0-16. Some of my best friends are Browns fans, and when things go wrong, they just kind of shrug. They're like, "Eh," like nothing phases them anymore.
Yeah. Team taken away from them. This total has gone from 50 to 51. Cleveland can put up points, and I don't know what to make of Pittsburgh's inability to stop the Eagles on third down last out. What do you think of this total?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'd lean over, but I'm not too excited about it. It is a bit high, and I'm only saying that because I haven't forgotten week 1 when the Browns were atrocious, and that was the best team they've played so far. They played the Ravens week 1, a divisional opponent, and just got smashed. So there's my apprehension about the over, because if they come out and look like they did that week, which I don't think they will, but they might, that's where I lay off this and think the under could be in play. But we've seen them put up points a bunch, so I'm not so excited about the total, the points total. I am a little bit interested in this first half. Let's see what you would get first half.
Let's take a look at what you would get first half. Here we go. First half. Only 3 of the books are out. BetMGM, PointsBet, and BetRivers. You can have a minus 2.5 juiced. The best 2.5 is at BetMGM at minus 118, or a minus 3 at minus 105.
And get a minus 2.5 on that first half?
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in that.
Minus 2.5 at minus 118. Do you want to pull the trigger?
I want to pull the trigger on the full game. Let me think about the other one.
All right. Well, let's give you the full game right now, and I might ride with you on this. Interesting that Dennis says the proper line or his line would be 2.5. Very interesting. Minus 3.5 at minus 110. That's available everywhere.
Alvin Smith said, "What about first half, Bebsy?" I don't know. What about first half?
Well, we're going to give you the 3.5 right now, minus 110.
Oh, no, he's easy. Yeah. Sorry, there's a delay on that. Yeah, I might double up on this game.
Well, you have time to put it together. Let's hear what Ohio's finest, Ixnizzle 420 say. He says, it's going to be a bloodbath. We know the Steelers are going to bring it. Can Baker man up and lead us to victory? We shall see. Browns D is weak, but has taken advantage of turnovers and have scored off of them. And Nilo says, evenly matched teams, it should be minus 2.5, not 4. All righty. Steelers full game minus 3.5, minus 110 from DraftKings for our Bebsy. Alvin Smith thinking of doubling up, and I'm not sure what to do. Nilo saying maybe to the over. All righty, let's move on to Bears, Panthers. That's next up. We're still dealing with these 1 o'clock games. Bears, Panthers. Let's see what we have for a market. Carolina opening up as 2.5-point favorites. That's where it is at most books, but we have seen threes on the board at plus money. Threes are on the board at plus money. This total opened up at 44. There is a 44.5 on the board. Let's see where the money is going. Money is going towards the over, and it's a 50-50. It's a 51%, 52% on cash and tickets towards the Panthers. So a closely contested betting game. Bears have had extra time to rest and prepare after their 2019 win at home over the Bucs on last Thursday night. Bears are 4-1, 2-0 on the road. Panthers 3-2, 1-1 at home. Foles goes 30 of 42 for 243 yards and a touchdown in his second start after replacing Trubisky. Allen Robinson catches 90 yards receiving. Jimmy Graham 3 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown. But Montgomery was incapable of running the ball against the Bucs. 29 yards on 11 carries. Khalil Mack had 2 sacks. They lose their left guard, James Daniels, to a season-ending pectoral tear. Linebacker Devontae Bond was also hurt on the opening kickoff, and safeties Deion Bush and Sherrick McManus remain out. For the Panthers, coming off their 3rd straight victory, Bebsy was on them last week, and I was wondering if he was late to the party. He was not, and I didn't even go to the party. Wanted to go to the party, talked about how good the party looks. I was, oh, God. Bridgewater, 75 of 102. So he's hitting at 73.5% completion for 824 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception over his last 3 games. He's also run for a TD and only been sacked twice in 3 games. Threw for 300 yards, 313 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Mike Davis continues to shine in the absence of McCaffrey. 89 yards rushing, caught 9 passes for another 60 yards. During the 3 games McCaffrey's been out, Davis rushed for 219 yards on 45 carries. He's caught 22 passes for 132 yards. Now, Brian Burns is in concussion protocol. He was knocked out of the game, their defensive end. They also lost their cornerback, Dante Jackson, to a toe injury. Kawan Short to a shoulder injury. Gross Matos, their defensive end, to an ankle injury. All 4 listed as questionable. And Eli Apple remains out of the lineup. Take it away, Bebsy. Bears, Panthers. You going back to the well with Carolina?
I kind of think I have to. Look, Chicago's record is way more impressive than the way Chicago has played this year. And you know what? It takes good teams to win tough games. I just don't know if I've bought into Chicago yet. I don't think it's, we might still be late to the party with the Panthers, but I still like them to cover this right now. I just think they're a better football team. They're rolling right now. Teddy Bridgewater is leading them. I love the resurgence of Teddy here. Back from injury, back from being the backup in the Saints. He's looking good. I'm loving the Panthers in this spot. I also think Chicago coming off that win, this is another letdown spot for them. So, yeah, the injuries concern me a little bit on defense, but I still think I like Carolina in this spot.
Yeah, I need to know because their front line has looked so much stronger of late, and I don't know if we got a fair test when Kawan left the game, Burns left the game from the Falcons. And, we talked about Derek Brown, the 7th overall pick, stepping up. We talked about what would happen if Kawan Short came back. We broke this all down, and now the 3 of the 4 players they lost during the Falcons game, defensive end Brian Burns, defensive end Yetur Gross-Matos, and defensive tackle Kawan Short. Is that enough to make you not bet it right now?
Well, you've listed them all as questionable. And when a team is playing poorly, i.e. their season's over, they just look bad, those questionables turn into doubtful pretty quickly. But if you're winning, guys play hurt. Guys will tough things out, especially when you're rolling the way they are right now. So I would say at least half of those guys are going to play, maybe all of them. Obviously, concussion protocol's a tough one to deal with. It's not like you can tough that out. But I just don't think it's enough for me to sway, especially because we've seen ineptitude from the Bears offense, regardless of who's at quarterback. So it's not like the Bears have a threatening offense. Can their defense keep Teddy Bridgewater and this really impressive Panthers attack at bay? And my answer is no. I don't think they can.
And also, Bebsy, breaking news from Hail to the Redskins for life. Breaking news, Jets release Le'Veon Bell.
Wow. I mean, Bell has done nothing for them, and you might as well give some carries to Frank Gore as he rides off into the sunset. So yeah, good riddance.
And Whale Tapper is going to be joining us shortly. He gave us at the Low Bag Summit of Champions in Miami. He gave us the Le'Veon Bell rush yards season total under last year, and we cashed it by about 700 yards. I think the Panthers will take care of business here.
Yeah, I think so too. They've been impressive in the face of adversity so far, and I'm gonna stay with them.
And the idea is, let's get the 2.5 before it becomes 3.
Not Flesh Allen, you're absolutely right. Frank Gore will retire a Niner. 1-day contract. Frank retires where he belongs.
All right, I'm on the board. Minus 2.5. We'll see what it is when I place the bet, which will be tonight. I do it after the show, but let's just see what it's minus 2.5, minus 115 right now.
Yeah, I'm on that as well. I'm really digging the Panthers right now. I'd fade almost anyone they face right now.
We have Jordy Nordman in the house. Great to see you, Jordy.
What's up, Jordy?
Let's see what you are getting for line shopping purposes. You're getting only Fox Bet has moved it to 3. I can give you a minus 2.5 and minus 114 at DraftKings.
Lock me in at DraftKings, buddy.
And that's a cent better than what I'm getting. Minus 2.5, minus 114 at DraftKings. Wow. So very few moves being made right now. Prince of the City says, finally, Jimmy. I'm close to moving on the Steelers. Leonard Welch is on that Carolina team total over at 23.5. What do you think of that team total over with the Panthers at 23.5?
Yeah, I don't hate that play. It doesn't excite me too much just because we know the Bears defense is solid. But, again, I can't argue my own word here. I think Carolina's offense has been rolling. So I do like this play. It's not for me, Leonard, but if you want to give my seal of approval, then yeah, I like it.
All righty. Prince of the City says, finally. There's going to be lots of action. There's going to be no shortage of action here. But these 1 o'clock games are tricky. And let's just go right after it. Our special guest is in the studio. And I was hoping to get through a lot of these 1 o'clock games before we brought him on because they're a mess. But, man, don't leave an all-star on the bench, baby. Whale Capper in the house. Whale, what's up, my man?
Oh, fellas, honor and a privilege to be invited to, and so great to see you again, Jimmy. It's been too long. Hope you're doing well. I feel like we haven't talked since what, the NFL draft? Maybe it's been too long.
And let's talk about you hit a 50-1 that night.
You remember that?
course.
That was incredible. Yeah, that was unbelievable. 50-1 on first kicker, and the guy didn't even make the league. Unbelievable. That was wild.
So for the audience that doesn't know the story, can you quickly tell them about it, because it's pretty magical?
I mean, it was day 2 of the draft. We were basically breaking down, what do you think? Is anything left to bet on the board? And we came up, well, this first kicker prop is kind of weird. I didn't know anyone that really, besides the Patriots, who was going to draft a kicker. And Belichick never really takes never really goes with the grain. He's always trying to do something a little outside the box, thinking outside the box. And of course, there was this huge expectation. The current kicker for the Colts is Rodrigo Blankenship, maybe. I can't remember his name exactly, but he was the odds-on favorite. And then there were a couple other guys I'd never heard of, and then Field was 50-1, and it was like, what are the chances Belichick's going to take someone no one's ever heard of before as the first kicker off the board? And so might as well just play 50-1. And sure enough, Belichick takes some guy that was Marshall's kicker. He was in the alt-right militia or something insane like that. And eventually they ended up cutting him. He didn't even make the team. So that was absolutely wild. Never going to top that. Totally random. And, that they paid out. No, there was no funny business at all. That was one of the more fun plays I can remember. And kind of indicative of the whole COVID, the whole pandemic break was all weird stuff like that. Just like random tips I would get on like a horse or, like some simulated something that fix was in, like just a bunch of really cool, wild stuff like that, which ended up being a lot of fun to play. So crazy, man.
Speaking of horses, I went 0-3 on the Triple Crown races this year, which was but I'm very excited about the Breeders' Cup coming up in a few weeks here at Keeneland, so good to get that cash back.
Yeah, you know what, Jimmy? There's a lot of races left. There is a lot of races left.
There is. And Whale Capper, you remember Rob Bebenek from our draft show. Whale Capper Bebsy is sitting this year 22-7. 75.9%, up 13.73 units, ROI plus 47.34%, average line minus 114.
I love it. What's been kind of the go-to sides totals? Have you got a couple of good reads on some teams that the market just wasn't in, and didn't know they were good, thought they were better than they were? What's the deal?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a mix. I think I got on Green Bay before other people did. I was on Pittsburgh and Buffalo very early. It's getting a little trickier because nobody's sleeping on those teams anymore. But now it seems like, I've been cashing a bit on the Panthers as well. Kind of just looking for teams that people have been sleeping on. But now it looks like first halves are that's what's been cashing for me the last couple of weeks. Just people sleeping on teams that come out hot and take their foot off the gas. Like Buffalo up until this week has been that team that's jumped out by a ton of points and then had a bad second half and still won. So I cashed on them very easily against the Raiders. I think I got them at a half a point in the first half, and they were up by like 17. So, it's just kind of been that kind of angle. Gotcha.
Well, that's good stuff, man. Congratulations.
Hey, it's no 50-1 on a kicker in the draft.
That was I still can't believe that. I can't believe you remember that, Jimmy. Great for bringing that up. What a great callback. God, that was fun.
It was cool. It was very, very cool.
I told a bunch of other people about that too. I got so many texts in the moment. Like, did you just see what happened? I was like, no, what? Like, in what sport? Oh, I forgot the draft was even going on. What happened? And it was like Belichick took some guy that no one ever heard of. He was in the field. I was like,
I'll state for the record, I do not remember anything from that draft.
It was weird.
I do remember I got yelled at for smoking a cigar inside. I do remember that, but other than that, seemed like we were having fun.
Well, I was hoping that we'd get through all these 1:00 games. Well, Capper, we've almost gotten through them, and only one move is being made at this point. We both backed the Panthers against the Bears. We both, and I haven't bet yet. I'll bet after the show, but I expect to still get the 2.5. Bebsy's moved on the Steelers against the Browns. He moved on the 3.5 minus 110 at DraftKings. I'm close to joining him, but just very quickly.
I'm very close to doubling up on that game as well, first half.
Very quickly, Bengals, Colts, Falcons, Vikings, Broncos, Patriots. Of course, we don't know what's going on there. And then Washington, Giants, Ravens, Eagles. And then we have the Steelers spot and the Panthers spot. Have you made any moves? And I know that you like the later games more, but did you make any moves on those early 1 o'clock games that we've already discussed?
When I saw the opener, I took Ravens at 7. Just on the value, I figured it was going to move in favor of the Ravens because of what we saw. And the Eagles, I don't have a ton of faith that they can rescue their season here, but they're going to get some players back and some offensive weapons back. Maybe see Jackson, maybe see Jeffrey. I don't know if any of that matters though, because Carson Wentz is really struggling this year overall, and he had a fine game against San Francisco to get his team a win. But I'm much more inclined to think that the Ravens have exactly the right pieces to really make the defense hurt and put scoreboard pressure on them, and blitzing Carson Wentz is a perfect recipe to get the worst out of him, which is a nice way to set that one up. So I'll be looking for Ravens to get the cover at 7. Don't love it at 7.5, 8, and in fact it could come back to 7 once we get some injury news from Philadelphia if their wide receivers are going. I'm with you on Steelers. I think that's price has gotten kind of ridiculous. I thought the opener of 4 was going to move in the direction of the Steelers. People are running back to the window to back the Browns after what they did last week against the Colts, but I felt much more about the Colts failing in a couple key areas than it was about the Browns really impressing me. They're kind of winning in spite of Baker Mayfield to a degree. He's took an injury late in that game that I think is going to be relatively important. So I think the Steelers do cruise, on top of the fact that they just historically they own the Browns. It's a big brother, little brother kind of feeling when these two get together. So, and the Steelers look great right now. Absolutely. They should have won by more, I thought, against the Eagles. They ended up covering the game, but that could have been even more uglier. Claypool emerging is an exciting piece. Browns have difficulty in terms of the injuries they're suffering in the defensive backfield. So that's a nice matchup every which way. So I'll be looking for that as well. And then, I'm going to go against you on the Panthers. I agree that the value was absolutely there the last 3 weeks, no question. But now seeing this at 2.5, I think the market is correcting a little bit in terms of who the Panthers are, what they do well. And most of their offense, you can say Teddy Bridgewater is, he's taken a meaningful step forward. He's playing great this year. It's cool to see. It's exciting. I love the guy. But he has 2 weapons in the passing game who can do really anything, and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. And the Bears pass defense, I had to upgrade them pretty substantially after seeing what they did last week against Tampa Bay. Really getting some outstanding play from Fuller, young just rookie guy they drafted, Jalen Johnson, playing incredibly well from the cornerback position. Their safeties are incredible. Eddie Jackson, one of the best in the league. So overall, I think the pass defense is going to really put a lot of pressure on this Panthers team to score. Under is a decent look at 44.5. I know unders are a little sketchy this year just because of the way the game's being officiated, but 44.5 seems too high to me. I would put that on the other side of the key, 44. And I think the Bears are live in that one. I don't know if I'm going to end up playing it, but my initial look was the way that the Bears pass defense has been upgraded, and the fact that that's kind of how the Panthers are making all of their bread these days. That sets up pretty well in terms of a matchup advantage for the Bears. So I don't love Foles. I don't love the Bears. I don't love Nagy. I love nothing about them. And the fact that they could go 5-1 is insane to me because it's just not a good team. But I don't know that they should be, plus 120-ish on the money line in that game.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. We have Will Kepper on the Ravens, got in at the 7. He's liking the Steelers and leaning towards the Bears. We're almost at these marquee games. Let's see if we can get through this quickly. We just have 2 left. First one is Lions-Jaguars. We have Will Kepper come on. We have to talk Detroit-Jacksonville. Uh, Detroit opens at -3 at Bet365. They've moved that to 3.5. The total opened up at 53. It's now at 54 or 54.5. The money so far, 79% of the cash, 77% of the tickets have been on the Detroit Lions. Lions coming off their bye week. They were last seen 35-29 loss at home to the Saints. Detroit became the first NFL team in history to lose 6 straight games in which they led by double-digit points. Saints scored 35 straight points from late in the first period, their first quarter, to the third to take control. And it threw me for a loop because I guess I just had a vividness of Detroit going into Arizona and taking care of business. I thought that something happened with the Saints with the lack of sleep and not having 6 starters. I was like, they're just a really good football team. And I backed the Saints early against the Chargers, and it hurt badly. Stafford. So I don't know what these Lions are. Stafford was 17-31 for 206 yards, 3 TDs, and a pick. Peterson ran 11 times for 36 yards. He can't be trusted. Galladay caught 4 passes for 62 yards. Amendola 2 passes for 57 yards. Desmond Trufant got hurt, and so did defensive tackle Nick Williams, but there's nobody on the injury report. So these guys are good to go. Going up against the Jags, 1-4, 1-1 at home. It looked bad since that surprising win over the Colts. Minshew goes 31-49, 401 yards, 2 TDs, 0 picks in their 30-14 loss at Houston. They managed just 71 yards rushing. It looks like the glass slipper is fallen off of James Robinson's foot. 13 carries for 48 yards. Janot catches 7 passes for 79 yards. They were already without Josh Allen. Their defensive end, cornerback C.J. Henderson and linebacker Miles Jack were out. Then they lose, and DJ Hayden is on injured reserve. And then they lose Equali, their defensive tackle. DJ Shark may come back, but there's so many injuries here on Jacksonville. Why don't we start with Whale-Cap or Lions-Jaguars?
Yeah, I think I'm expecting a bunch of these injured Jacksonville defensive players to come back, which I think helps them greatly. And realistically, I was expecting this line to open up under 3 for the Lions as favorites, and the fact that it opened up 3.5, I thought was kind of an unfair adjustment. It almost made me take the Jags, just because there's probably line value there. If you get these defensive players coming back, if people realize, hey, this is a little bit of an overreaction here to what we just saw against Houston. Houston obviously played motivated, having just fired their coach. I would still say that in general, the Lions are a little suspect as a 3.5-point favorites on the road. So I'm going to steer clear of this one, but if I had to make a play, I'd be playing the Jags.
Interesting. What do you think, Bebsy? Lions, Jags?
I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree with anything you said. These are 2 bad football teams. One football team is more injured than the other, but I mean, I've liked Gardner Minshew as a dog all year because he seems to pull it out. Obviously, he didn't last week, but he's got no help right now. To me, this is you're betting. I can't bet on Detroit because they're just an awful football team, and Jags are too injured to get interested in. So again, it's a no play. I mean, I think Whale said it. The chat's saying it. This is just a garbage game that. I mean, we're just going to check the score at the end of the game. There might be 2 highlights. This is probably going to be the worst game of the week. And that's saying something because rolling through these 1 o'clock games, there's a lot of shit on the board, and this might be the worst of it.
This total is up to 54.5. Viper MB's on the under. What do you think of the total, Bebsy?
If anything, I'm on the under that. That total seems awfully high. Especially with 2 pretty atrocious football teams. But again, there's nothing that really appeals to me here. Even that total, which does seem on the high side, I can't get excited or interested about this game whatsoever.
What do you think of this total at 54.5, Whale?
Yeah, it's too high. Not worth playing because the Jaguars defense could no-show again. We've seen it this year. But the Lions do this thing where if they're playing with a lead, they go so conservative and they can't really run the ball. They can't put away a lead well, but they try to milk the clock. They go anti-aggressive, which is a problem. And yeah, I mean, it's it's not like Minshew can't chuck it, and the Lions defense is not great. So I can see why this has gotten up to 54, but I would make this game 51.
I agree, and it just feels like they're both pretty easy to play against, especially the Jags. Robinson can't move the ball right now. It's pretty easy to get 7 guys back. Just rush 4. Don't let Minshew beat you. And then if Detroit has a lead, the conservative play comes in, and Peterson's not going to eat up yards. I think Viper MB is in the right mindset here with this under. And we have, at this point, 62% of the cash on the under, 56% of the tickets on the under, and yet it's moved up to 54.5. All right, I think the under is interesting. I'm going to come back to it. All right, let's move on to the final 1 o'clock game. And we have a few books that have given us a line, and they're all over the map here. 4 books, 4 offshores have given a line for Texans, Titans. And obviously, let's not spend too much time on it because we need to know what happens tonight. But after 3 quarters, Titans are up 28-10 and looking very, very strong. And the Texans, a little bit of fresh air without O'Brien on the sidelines. 73-year-old Romeo Crennel, the oldest head coach in NFL history, gets the win 30-14. Deshaun Watson throws 359 yards, 3 touchdowns. Brandon Cooks, 161 yards receiving. David Johnson rushes for 96 yards. It seemed like everybody was happy. They'd been giving up a league-leading 181.8 yards per game on the ground, and they shut down the Jaguars. That's pretty easy. That's a pretty easy thing. They're pretty healthy as well. Callum Bailey, their linebacker, is out, and so is Bernadrick McKinney, and he's done for the year. But that's about it. What is your expectation of a market here, Whale Capper? Tennessee around 4 or 4.5 point favorites?
Yeah, no, I think I saw it open 4 at Bet Online on Sunday, and I took +4 at the time, thinking that's going to come in on it's going to, they're going to reopen this on the other side of 3. I thought at the time that Tennessee was going to have lost to Buffalo. It does not look like that's going to happen. This is really Josh Allen regression in a brutal way tonight. But it's a short week for Tennessee. It's Tuesday. They got to turn around and play again on Sunday. That's going to be really, really tough for these guys. It's not something that, I think that I don't think they were preparing 2 weeks ahead of time for this Houston Texans team. I don't even know if they really knew what they were going to get in terms of, what they were going to look like offensive, defensively. So it's a little bit of an advantage spot for Houston. And I would think that you probably see this reopen at 3.5-ish for Tennessee. It may get bet down to 3. If it opens 4.5, I think you have a small edge on Houston. But this is, Tennessee's offense is clicking in every way, shape, and form right now, and Houston's defense is not great. So it's a little bit of a dicey spot to get involved with the dog. Even though obviously, I have a lot of respect for Watson. He's a great quarterback. It's just there's a lot of other problems on that Texans team besides Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, I think that 4 would be appealing. What do you think, Bebsy? Texans, Titans?
See, I think even with the 4, I go Titans here. I just don't, with what Whale Capper said, there are way more problems on that team than just Bill O'Brien. A lot of them were caused by Bill O'Brien. I mean, he emptied the cookie jar. He traded away all their picks. He didn't bring in enough talent with those picks. He shipped out the biggest talent they had. They got that win out of that way, that sort of fuck you, Bill O'Brien win as soon as he was gone. But that win came against Jacksonville. So let's relax a bit on that. If this line opens up close to 4, I'm really going to like the Titans. And even on a short week, they are rolling right now. I did not expect them to do what they are doing to Buffalo tonight. I don't think many people did. But look, they've played well all season long. And so far, the hardest thing for them to beat has been COVID, and it looks like they're coming out the other side of it. So if it opens up somewhere around there, I'm on the Titans or Tennessee on this one.
I think that this short week and them lambasting the Bills on a showcase night. I mean, I know there's baseball going on, but I think we're going to get a nice number on Texans, and I expect to take it. I don't think we've been head to head yet, Bebsy, but this might be the first one that I think that if I can get 4 or more, I think I back the Texans here. Remember,
the fact that it's a divisional game, I lean your way, and I agree with you there. I just think Tennessee Titans have looked so good this year, and yeah, I think the only team I had Pittsburgh to beat them. That game was obviously canceled due to COVID, but I just love the way they're rolling right now. I think Vrabel is a very good coach. I think of all the guys that have come out of the Belichick tree, Vrabel seems to get it. And I just like the way he's got his team playing. So if it's at 4, great. If it gets a little higher than that, which after tonight, if they keep smacking the Bills, then it's going to go up. So we'll see. It depends where it opens, but -4, we're going head to head, I guess.
We'll have to see the stats because we're not watching it. Maybe do a quick overview of how the game banged out. But Titans are 3-0. They've allowed 434.7 yards per game, 36 more than they're gaining. So I'd be interested in fading this. Al Cervic says Jimmy loves Watson so much, and he's right. He's right. I do love Watson very, very much. All right, Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there are the 1:00 games. There are the 1:00 games, and unlike last week where we had so many moves, not a lot here. I am going to make a decision about the Steelers within the next hour, and I'm interested in the Texans. I've already moved on the Panthers, although Whale Capper's breakdown does give me a little bit of fear. I guess Bebsy has to decide if he's going to double up on the Steelers because that 2.5 first half is available right now. And judging by the market, I don't expect it to be available for long. Those are the 1:00 games. Now we get some exciting games moving forward. We're going to start with the 4:05 game that doesn't quite qualify. Jets-Dolphins. But it's going to get better, I promise. Dolphins open up as 8 or 8.5 point favorites. And everybody in survival game pools, like myself, it looks like the Dolphins might end up being the spot here that we have to back. This total is sitting at 47.5. Let's see where the money has gone here. At this point, the under is taking money, and all of the money and tickets are on the Dolphins. Jets defense couldn't keep the Cardinals off the field. Arizona scored touchdown drives of 96, 89, 75, and 70. 0-5 Jets. Flacco finished 18 of 33 for 195 yards. Jamison Crowder, 8 catches for 116 yards. Le'Veon Bell, 13 times for 60 yards, and he's been let go. He's been waived. That came out tonight from the chat. So Le'Veon Bell gone. So besides Darnold, the Jets have 3 other starters out this week. Perriman, wide receiver. Mekhi Becton, their offensive tackle. Cornerback, Bless Austin. And then they lose Chris Hogan to an ankle injury. He's now on injured reserve. The Dolphins looked very good against the Niners. You know, they were able to abuse the injuries in the secondary for the Niners. Fitzpatrick goes 22 of 28 for 350 yards and 3 TDs. Preston Wilson, 4 passes. Catches 4 passes for 106 yards. Gesicki, 5 passes for 91 yards. Myles Gaskin around 16 times for 57 yards. Their defense held the Niners to just 259 yards of total offense, just 128 through the air. They held the ball for 36 minutes and 53 seconds of the game. All right, Jets, Dolphins. Why don't we move over to you, Bebsy? What do you think here? Dolphins 8-point favorites. This total at 47.5.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of love being given to the Dolphins because they pounded San Francisco, but you said it. Like, they attacked that secondary. You knew from the first play of the game exactly what the Dolphins' game plan was. Brian Allen got signed off the practice squad the morning of the game, and he got torched. He gave up 3 touchdowns like that, and before the Niners could even get started, they couldn't run the ball anymore. They were so far behind, and then they had to rely on Jimmy G, who's obviously not healthy yet. He couldn't plant. He couldn't move around the pocket. So they mauled the Niners, but I think a lot of that had to do with the personnel in the game for the Niners. I mean, we all know that half of this team is missing, but they are now – I'm pretty sure Brian Allen is their seventh-string corner. They had no secondary, and Fitzy just took advantage of that. Look, he's not the greatest quarterback ever, obviously, but he's a smart man, and he knows exactly how to attack a defense, and that's what they did there. Now – I don't think the Jets are any better. Healthy, the Jets aren't any better. And the Jets not having guys like Mekhi Becton, man, he's probably, even as a rookie, the best player on that football team right now. So I think I still kind of lean Miami even with all these points. There's a lot of points to give a team that's not very good, but man, there's a ton of injuries on the Jets, too. And on top of it, they're coached by Adam Gase, who week after week, I keep saying this is the week this idiot gets fired, and he's still sticking around. So I don't understand it. I just don't know how you give a team that's – I'm not going to say Miami's bad. I'm going to say they're not good. I don't know how you give them that many points against a divisional opponent. So it's a tough play. It should be lumped in with these 1 o'clock games because it's another shit game that I don't really care about, but I'm leaning Miami on it.
Understandably so. Well, Capper, is there money to be made in this Jets-Dolphins spot?
I agree with almost everything Bebsy said except for leaning Miami. This is dog or nothing, which means, and you look at who the dog is, it's the Jets, which means it's nothing. So, it's 8 points is too much for in division. 8 points is too much when you're talking about a Dolphins team that just traveled across the country. Now they're flying all the way back. They're high on how amazing they played against a team that they were expected to lose to handily. They beat them all around town. So and on top of that, the Dolphins lost a couple of kind of depth players on their defense, especially, that may open things up for the Jets a little bit. Jets getting rid of Le'Veon Bell isn't, it's not going to improve their offense per se, but it definitely sends a message in the locker room that we don't care if we're going to take a dead cap hit of $17 million. If this guy wasn't contributing, we're going to cut him. And it's that the rest of the guys in that locker room kind of know, hey, there's an opportunity for you to make some money, to step up and to be a part of this team. And we've cleared some space for you. So you may see a little bit of punch, a little bit of fight out of the Jets. I hate Gase. I can't believe that they're going to war here with the position players and the quarterback that they are. It's not great, but this is too many points. Even as bad as the Jets are, I would have said the same thing about the Dolphins last year, getting 21 or something to the Cowboys week 3. Getting 17 to the Patriots week 2. That was too many points. I didn't take it, but it's too many, and it's a good place to pass because they still have pride. These are still NFL players. It's not like this is a college football team. So
agreed. And also it brings me back to the great memories of Whale Capper basically putting money in all our pockets in Miami, telling us to bet the Le'Veon Bell rush prop under.
Oh, that was a great one too.
It was 1,200 yards. And he might got 550.
Such a bad number.
It was the bet of the year, though. It was just sit back and. So thank you for that, Bebsy. Thank you for that, Whale Capper. It was. I've been thanking Bebsy a lot this year. That's why it almost came. But Whale Capper, thank you for that gift. All right, we have no move here. Jets Dolphins. Is there any feel on the total, or should we just move on to these marquee matchups?
I could see this go either way. I would lean under again just because there's a chance that the Dolphins look a little bit fatigued having traveled across the country and back, but I don't think there's a strong angle there.
All righty, let's move on to the big ones. Finally, some marquee matchups here. We're going to start with the 425 games. That's Packers, Buccaneers. This is going to be fun. This total opened up at 51.5. It shot up to 54.5. That's the opener at Bet365, by the way. We talk about the licensed books in America here. The spread opened up with the Packers is just minus 1.5 point favorites. That's gone up to 2.5 at the leading indicator books. Now let's see what we have here ticket-wise. All the money's on the over. All the tickets are on the over. We're talking, I mean, you got to take these stats with a grain of salt, but it's saying 99% on the over, 96% of the tickets on the over. The money's coming in on the Packers. 62% of the money, 78% of the tickets on the Packers. Packers are fresh off of a bye week. They're 4-0. Open the season by scoring at least 30 points in 4 straight games for the first time in franchise history. They're coming off an easy 30-16 home win over the Falcons. No Devontae Adams, sat out a second straight game with a hamstring injury. No Lazard on injury reserve with a core issue. And no Mercedes Lewis. And, what does Rodgers do? He turns Robert Tonyan into a superstar. 3 TD passes, undrafted free agent out of Indiana State. 6 catches for 98 yards. Rodgers goes 27 of 33 for 327 yards, throwing 13 touchdown passes without a pick. Zadarius Smith records 3 sacks, and Devontae Adams participated in Monday's practice. They did have injury problems, and it's unclear if it's all better. But basically, Chandon Sullivan, their DB, left with a concussion in the first half. It looks like he's going to be good to go. Cornerback Kevin King hurt his quadriceps. Then they have defensive tackle Kenny Clark, who's missed 3 straight games. And they've had Rashawn Gary, their outside linebacker, and inside linebacker Christian Kirksey inactive. So I don't know exactly what's going on there. And then Buccaneers coming off that 2019 loss at Chicago. Terrific Tom has everything in life. Just say you made a mistake. Just say you made a mistake. I don't know why you got to pretend you didn't make a mistake. You got 6 rings. You're going home to Giselle. You just made a mistake. Don't be an asshole. I just can't. I'm still just shocked. Why you can't be a man? He's always been a man, even though he was the most, the least muscular NFL prospect in the history of the sport. He's always stepped up and been a man. I don't know why he had to be such a little bitch and pretend he didn't make a mistake. It's okay to make mistakes. You're human. 25 of 41, 253 yards, 1 touchdown. Tyler Johnson catches 4 passes for 61 yards. Gronk 3 for 52. Ronald Jones steps up in a big way, 17 carries for 106 yards. But the Buccaneers, 11 penalties for 109 yards. They watched Vita Vea carted off. Keyshawn Vaughn was hurt on that massive hit by Fuller. Whale Capper was talking about how good Fuller looks for the Bears right now. LaShawn McCoy and remains out. Chris Godwin and Justin Watson both were at practice today. And we have the marquee matchup here. Packers, Buccaneers. Take it away, Whale Capper. What are you thinking?
So we saw the Lions coming off of their bye. The line got adjusted in their favor. And that didn't make a ton of sense to me because they don't have a great coach and they're not getting big players back from injury. You see the same thing happen here where the Packers are coming back off of a bye and the line gets adjusted in their favor, mostly because of what people saw on Thursday Night Football with the Bucs, and they were really kind of uninspired by them, right? And sure enough, the Packers have been out of this world good this year. They're getting it done with players who you don't even don't know their names before the season started. It's really incredible to see how Aaron Rodgers is elevating the performance of some of these guys who are borderline replacement level players. But sure enough, they're getting Devontae Adams back likely. The defense is susceptible in a lot of ways, but mostly on the run. Tampa Bay can't really manifest much of an attack via the run, so it doesn't really scare me all that much. So I guess in total, with the better coaching coming off of a bye, 2 weeks to prepare for this game. I have, LaFleur, not my guy in the long run. I don't like what he's done in terms of establishing the long arc of this team, but for now, at least, it's, he's doing a good job game planning. He's doing a good job of, making the most of this, the end of Aaron Rodgers' career. So, got to buy in a little bit with what he's doing. So in total, I can entirely understand the why the line moved in the way it did. And it's possible it didn't move enough. It's possible that the Packers are that much better than the Buccaneers, and that they should that this line is short. I mean, reasonably, if they replayed Saints, if they replayed Saints Packers tomorrow, or this week, it's likely you would see the same sort of thing where Packers are short favorites in that game as opposed to 3-point dogs, which is where it went off. And I think this. Buccaneers are a very similar team to the Saints, maybe a little worse. We saw them lose head to head. So it's not crazy to me that this is, the current, the line is where it is. And I would lean Packers, but we have also seen in times in the past that a team that was white hot to start the season, everything was going their way. It was clicking. You want to keep playing games. You want to keep going. And the bye hits them early and throws some cold water on them, and they come out a little rusty. And I'm a little nervous about that because Tampa Bay had extra time to prepare for this game too. Tampa Bay had 10 days where they were in the practice facility for the first couple of those days, whereas the entire bye week, Green Bay had to be at home. And so that does neutralize a lot of the advantages here for the Packers. And ultimately that kept me off of this game. But it should be a really, really good contest. And if this were being played in a totally neutral situation, I would probably be back in the Packers.
Do you agree with this market move towards the over?
I actually thought it was going to go down, but that's kind of based on if there's one thing that Tampa Bay I think is doing well this season, and they didn't show it well at all in the game against the Chargers. That was a weird game. All told, that was just a very difficult one to really assess and understand what happened. But their defense has been playing well over the balance of the season. Holding the Panthers to 17 in hindsight looks pretty good. Keeping a lid on a couple of the other teams that have decent offenses this season has been impressive. And I like what Todd Bowles is doing in terms of coordinating that defense. I like the emergence of some of their cornerbacks. And they're going to, the loss of Vita Vea is going to hurt. But I don't think that hurts them as much as that would affect the total, because Vita Vea he wasn't doing much in terms of disrupting the passing game. He was mostly just a solid part of their run stopping unit, and they have redundancy in Ndamukong Suh. So it's I don't know that it's going to be felt obviously in this contest, and I thought this might trickle to the under, but surely someone out there feels like the boat race is going to be on here.
Oh, what an interesting spot. Packers, Bucks. Bebsy, take it away.
I do agree with a fair amount of what Wales said. I disagree on some things. I do think Vita Vea will be sorely missed in this game because Suh, there is redundancy there, but he's not the player he used to be. And look, the Green Bay Packers have a wonderful combination at running back, and they're going to eat now if they can use that middle, which I think plays to their favor because they're going to control the clock in a game that is going to, I think, wind up being a shootout, especially if they get Godwin back. I don't know what's the status on Evans. He seems to be hurt every week and then plays and then leaves hurt again. Both teams are getting some weapons back. I just think that coming into this week, both teams had an extended break. I really like Bruce Arians as a coach. I'm kind of with you with regards to LaFleur. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. He's from Shanahan's system, so you see a lot of similar stuff there, and you see it making a little more sense this year than it did last year, which is what they say about Kyle's system. It's usually second year does better. I just think top to bottom, Green Bay is a better football team. And Jimmy, your argument right now with Tom Brady and his ego not admitting that he made a mistake, I think this could come into play again. Not that exactly, but if this turns into a shootout, we know Aaron Rodgers is on a warpath right now. We also know that he can still make all of the throws that were in his repertoire 7 years ago. He still can sling. He still throws a dime on the run. Tom does not have all of his tools that he used to. He's still brilliant. He still checks down with the best of them. But whenever he goes deep, it starts to get ugly. The man has thrown a lot of pick sixes recently because he still trusts his arm that he doesn't have the same zip that he used to. So if they start exchanging blows downfield, I can see a hard pick six coming Tom's way, and I think I can see the pack pulling away because of that. And a lot of it has to do with Tom's got an ego. We know that. We know that, of course, and I would too if I had 6 rings. I wouldn't give my son that long, but that's Tom's choice.
You wouldn't kiss your son for that long? It's crazy.
It's just too long to kiss your son. That's all.
I don't know who's counting.
I mean, it was 3 Mississippis. Come on.
It was 3 Mississippis. It was at least. So we have no moves.
No, I'm on the pack on this, and I'm kind of leaning towards the over as well. But for sure, I'm taking the pack here.
I think the boat has been missed on the over. The best line we could give you, though, for the pack is at Bet Rivers, -2 at -109. Does that sound good?
Lock her in, buddy. I love it.
There's a couple of 1.5s out there, right? Didn't Chris bookmaker have -1.5? Oh, you guys are U.S. shops. I got you.
Yeah, we only line shop for Bebsy on the licensed American books.
Smart.
-2 at -109. Something holding them back. All right. There you go. Okay, now we move on to the game. Everybody, we have the 2 perfect cappers for Rams-Niners. 2 perfect cappers. Whale capper in Los Angeles. Bebsy, an enormous Niners fan. Let's talk the Sunday nighter Rams-Niners. They've already mentioned in the chat how excited they are to hear this analysis from you guys on this giant game. And it's getting dark in LA, so we got to move quickly so we can still see Whale Capper's face. Oh man, it's so fun having Whale rolling with us. Okay, this opened at Bet365 with the Rams at -3, -115. That's moved to 3.5. Rams are now 3.5-point favorites across the board. This total opened at 49. It is now at 50.5. Rams coming off dominant 30-10 win at Washington. Goff threw for 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for another. Cooper Kupp, 5 catches for 66 yards. Cam Akers, 9 rushes for 61 yards. Aaron Donald, 4 sacks. Now a 7.5 through 5 games on the year. Oren Cole injured an elbow, their linebacker, on one of Donald's sacks early in the third quarter. And LA was without leading tackler Micah Kaiser. They placed Fuller on injured reserve as well. And offensive tackle Bobby Evans remains out. The Niners were completely annihilated by the Dolphins. We've already spoken about that in this show. And we can talk about all the injury issues, get a breakdown from Pepsi there. But Garoppolo, 7 for 17, 77 yards, 2 picks, 15.7 rating. Threw 2 interceptions in the final 2 minutes of the first half. Passing game averaged 3.2 yards per dropback. And that's not even the worst. That's the second worst performance since Kyle Shanahan arrived in 2017. We talked about Brian Allen being abused. He was put up from the practice roster. Let's get an LA San Francisco look from the Whale Capper joining us today. What is your move? Have you made a move?
So this one's super tough because looking ahead last week, I'm kind of eyeing up the lines and I'm like, man, San Francisco -3, huh? You know, like, wow, boy, that's a lot of points. You know, these two teams are really kind of close together. And then you see how the games play out last weekend and it flips to Rams -3. And I'm thinking, whoa, that is a enormous adjustment. It's not, really based on injury or player, surprises. This is all kind of known information who's going to be available in this one. So that was shocking. And then to see it go to 3.5, this is a massive, massive adjustment on 1 week's of information. It's tough for me to say that this is a fair price at this point. If you're laying 3.5 with the Rams here, you just know that you are betting a number that has been moved well past, what is a reasonable range for these two teams. They can still win, they can still cover for sure, but this is tough to defend a Rams play from a math perspective in any way, shape, or form. And you flip it to, okay, well, are the Niners live in this one? What can they do that can really take advantage of the Rams? I would say that for sure, if they lean pretty heavily on the running game, I have huge questions about some of the linebacking core from the Rams. Really, everyone outside of Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey is a question mark for me on the entire Rams defense. They lost another couple players last week that were depth players, and the Rams are stars frozen scrub lineup. Like when, they can't afford to lose guys that are part of their starting core, even if they're guys that you don't know their names. It's just asking for to test their depth, which just isn't there on this team. So it is possible that you have a softer landing here in terms of who the Niners are going to face in terms of a defense, and in terms of an offense. I get it. The Niners defense has regressed so spectacularly this season. It doesn't even look like the same unit. A ton of that is because of how many of their star players are either on different teams or out for the year with injury. I'm curious to see if Richard Sherman comes back in this one. My guess is he's going to go. I took the Niners at +3.5. Thinking this is probably going to come back to 3. It was a value play, really, in straightforward terms. There's a gravity that comes along with the fact that the favorite has flipped here between last week and this week. I think the market is gonna pull back just based on that gravity. I doubt we see any other surprises in terms of injuries that aren't positive news for the Niners at this point. It could happen, but I took a swing at Niners +3.5. I think they're live in this game, and I'm a guy who always kind of looks forward to certain situational spots in the calendar, and the Rams have done a ton of traveling over the last 4 weeks. Made 2 trips to the East Coast, played a home game against the Giants, another trip to the East Coast last week. So this is their now 4th week traveling in 5 weeks. That wears on a team, and a team without a lot of depth, a team with, a couple of nagging injuries. I think that might be just enough to kind of tilt things in the balance here in favor of the Niners. So I think the Niners can get a win. I took the +3.5. And I'm pretty nervous about this game, though, because really there's not a lot that I've seen from San Francisco this season that suggests that they're anywhere close to the same level as last season. But when a push comes to shove, I love what Shanahan has had in store for Sean McVay Sean McVay defenses. So I think they can play a little bit of keep away, a little bit of bully ball, and get the win against the Rams.
Ooh, Bebsy, what do you think of that breakdown?
I mean, it's a great breakdown. There's one bit of information that might upset you, Whale Capper, and that's that Sherman had a setback and he will not be playing. He had a setback in his calf injury, so they're saying he's probably not going to play. They also lost Quan Alexander to a high ankle sprain this week. There's just too many players out on San Francisco. Just a quick rundown. They're without Ronnie Blair. They're without Nick Bosa. They're without Solomon Thomas. They're now without Quan Alexander. And in their defensive backfield, there's just nobody. There's literally nobody. They signed another guy off a practice squad this week. He's going to dress. I don't know if he's going to play. It was a weird choice last week to start Brian Allen, who got torched when Witherspoon was back in the game. When he came in, they were a little bit better, but by then the game was already lost. So for me, it's really if they can start, if Mosley comes back, and they have Mosley and Verrett playing corner, then they might be able to put up a defense. But the other thing, they're without K'Wan Williams, who is one of the most underrated players in the league. He is a shutdown slot corner. And without him, they just got exploited last week. Now, the reason I think this is a tough game to call, even with how bad the Niners have been and how deflated they are and how injured they are, they always play the Rams tough. Even when the Rams are great and the Niners are shit, or the Niners are great and the Rams are shit, these games come down to a field goal so often. And it's been like that for like 2 decades. I don't know why. That's the true rivalry in that division. I know Seahawks fans think it's Seahawks-Niners. It's not. You just started watching football 10 years ago and you don't know what you're talking about. But that's the real rivalry, and they always get up and play. So if the Niners have 2 healthy corners and can stick to their game plan, they can keep this game close. But if they don't, then they're just going to get torched by this Rams offense. On the other hand, look, Jimmy Garoppolo's still hurt. He played hurt last week. I'm not going to put a ton of stock into his performance because he was trying to throw off one leg. Now, one-legged Jimmy's probably still better than Mullins and Beathard, but their entire offense is predicated off the run. And a lot of it's play action. And if Jimmy can't do play action, then that's going to handcuff them. And if they get down early, they can't go to the run. But last week, even getting pumped that bad, I think Raheem Mostert still ran for like 100 yards on 9 carries or something. So they can move the ball running, but if they get down early, then it's a disaster. So I have to see who's playing this week before I can bet.
Yeah, fair points.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And I can understand both looks. I can understand the Niners plus 3.5 after this huge change here. What do you think about this total, Bebsy, that's shot all the way? Has a shot that's just gone up 1.5 from the 2 points at some books, up to 51.
Well, again, I think everything has to do with who's playing in the secondary for San Francisco. Because if they have legit NFL starters, this could be a low-scoring affair. This could end up being a dogfight. But if those guys are out again and you're playing a 7th-string corner or 8th string now, I guess, off the practice squad, then they're just gonna torch the secondary. We know that the Rams can move the ball through the air, and there's nothing stopping them if San Francisco has no healthy corners, which currently they don't. I don't know. Like, Quan Alexander is also a loss in the passing game because what he lacks in tackling skills, he makes up for in coverage skills. He's a great cover linebacker. So without him, Higbee's going to have a lot of room, even though Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner might be the most underrated linebacker in the league for not much longer. I mean, people are starting to wake up to how good he is, but there's just so much missing, and we need to find out if Mosley's playing. If Mosley's playing, it's a tight game, and I lean Niners. If he's not, then this is just going to be a stomping from the Rams.
Well, join us Sunday, 11 a.m. for our kickoff show. There is all of Sunday's action. Whale Capper, are you cool to hang with us for these 2 Monday games?
I think I got to bail, guys. It's getting super dark out here.
Sure.
I'll listen and chat live, though. Best of luck, and this is great input. I love Bebsy's takes. I got to tune in and chat more often. You guys do these every Tuesday and Friday, it sounds like?
Yeah, every Tuesday and Sunday. We'd love to have you on, Whale Capper. We love you. Do you want to tell the chat a little bit about the big deep dive podcast that you do?
Oh, yeah. Check out the deep dive. Just like this, we'll go through every single game. Wherever you get your podcast, it's a good listen. We ham it up. We go run down the card, make our cases for every pick, and you won't be taking on the betting action on an NFL Sunday without all of the news and info and tips you need. So this is a good compliment to the odds.com Tom show.
Oh, it's a great show. And follow Whale Capper at @whale_capper on Twitter. He's an absolutely great follow. He puts out his action each week and he pins it up there for the week. And just a great guy, great capper. Thanks so much for joining us, man. We'd love to have you back, my friend.
All right, continued success. Best of luck, guys.
Thanks for love your takes, man.
There he is, Whale Capper, who's turning into ghost stories.
I love a good ghost story, though.
Okay. All righty. Let's move on to the Monday night action. By the way, Tennessee just running a train on the Bills. Chiefs-Bills. I wonder how this market will change now. Kansas City opened at 3.5-point favorites, Bebsy, and there is a 3 on the board, heavily juiced. 3.5-point road favorites. So now we have both these teams at 4-1, coming off bad losses. Raiders went into Kansas City, shocked the Chiefs 40-32. Mahomes spent the entire game trying to escape Vegas' pass rush. They completely manhandled the Chiefs' offensive line. Mahomes still 340 yards passing, 2 touchdowns with a pick. Kelsey 108 yards receiving. Sammy Watkins leaves with a hamstring injury. Osemele tore tendons in both of his knees during Sunday's loss. So you have the Osemele injury, Watkins injury. A linebacker, Anthony Hitchens, hurt his hand was off the field in the fourth quarter. And they have one player who's been added to the COVID-19 list after potentially being exposed to the virus. And then you have this Bill squad who just took it in the brown eye, just took it in the bottom mouth here in front of everybody against the Titans. Bebsy, what are your thoughts here, Chiefs-Bills?
I mean, is there anybody actually offering up that action right now, that -3?
Let's see here. No, those are offshore books that have opened it up. It's off the board at the licensed spots. Let's see if Bet365 is giving you something here.
I imagine after the shellacking that's happening right now as we speak, that's going to change. So it depends on how high it goes. But if it comes in at -3, I'm going to go ahead and ignore what happened against Vegas this weekend. It might have been a look-ahead spot for the Chiefs. Maybe they were zeroing in on this Bills game. Maybe they overlooked Vegas. I expect the next time those two teams meet, it's going to go differently. The Chiefs are still the champs. The Chiefs are still the most well-balanced football team in the league. I don't think, as much as I love Buffalo, I just, if it's anywhere near -3, I think you jump on the Chiefs. I would have done that. If the Bills won tonight, I would have jumped on that. So I'm assuming this shifts, but to me, look, the Bills are great. They're still learning how to be great. The Chiefs are already there. At -3, that's an easy play.
Agreed. The weather on Sunday, 20-mile-per-hour wind, still nice, 61 Fahrenheit. Alvin Smith says Chiefs win big, says our guy Alvin. Very, very interesting. So
yeah, I'm kind of the same mind that Alvin is. And again, I'm not even taking tonight's game into this consideration. I just think, and we've talked about it, as good as the Bills are, they are a team that's still learning to be that good. They aren't quite there yet. So, the Chiefs are still the champs. They're still great. Yeah, I like this.
All righty. And Bebsy is able to tweet out any official play, and it will count towards his record. Again, catch us Sunday at 11 a.m. for the kickoff show. Then let's move to the Monday nighter. Cardinals, Cowboys, and by far.
I do just want to address what you put up on the screen there for a second that Mark Uncapper said. You're right. Vegas isn't a bad squad, and I was on them early this year. I like them. I just don't think. I think this week was a bit of an anomaly. That's all. I'm not dogging the Raiders in this. I do think, especially offensively, they're a good football team.
Yeah, there's a lot to figure out. But if you're going to count for a bounce back spot from one of these two teams, you are expecting it to be from the Chiefs. So let's stick with this for a little bit longer. What went wrong? I mean, we know that I would say the offensive line was the problem, but there had to be more than that.
Sure. When you consider the fact that the biggest problem the Raiders have had all year is mustering a decent pass rush. So was it because Kelechi Osemele went down? Was that enough, or did the rest of this Raiders defensive line finally put it together? I don't know. I do think that was a big factor, but I don't think that's going to be a huge factor going forward.
All righty, let's move on to the Monday nighter. Cardinals, Cowboys. Interesting spot. Cardinals open up as 2.5-point favorites. It's now at 3 at one book at plus money, and I expect it to get there. I expect it to get to 3, although the 5-cent move at this point it opened Arizona minus 115, minus 2.5, now minus 110. Cardinals got back on track with an easy 30-10 win at the Jets. They racked up 496 total yards. Kyler Murray goes 27-37 for 380 yards, 1 TD, 1 pick. Hopkins catches 6 passes for 131 yards. Christian Kirk's 5 passes for 78 yards. Kenyon Drake 18 carries for 60 yards. Chandler Jones ruled out after a first-half biceps injury. Budda Baker returned to the lineup after missing a week following thumb surgery. Defensive tackle Rashard Lawrence suffered a calf injury. And safety Chris Banjo and linebacker Devon Kennard missed the Jets game. They're questionable this week. Then we go to the massive injury. And I think Andy Dalton is capable of stepping up here after Prescott's gruesome ankle injury. He came in, he went 9 for 11, 111 yards. He muffled a snap. But I'd love money to keep. I can't bet Dallas. I can't bet Dallas. What am I saying? Maybe it's a team total spot that I should be looking at. The total opened at 53. It's now 54.5. Zeke ran 19 times for 91 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 8 catches for 124 yards. He's rolling. The question is, more injuries. They also lose defensive tackle Tristan Hill, carted off with a right knee injury. The question is this an easy play for the Cardinals, or do you think that the Cowboys could step up with the Red Rocket?
I don't think, and this isn't a knock on Dak Prescott so much as it is a credit to Andy Dalton. I don't think there's that huge of a gap between these two guys. I really don't. Dak, he's been airing it out, and he's putting up incredible numbers, but he's putting them up against terrible defenses, and he's got great receivers. I think Andy Dalton is more than capable of doing the same thing. Andy Dalton very seldom had good receivers in Cincy. He had A.J. Green healthy here and there. He had Tyler Eifert here and there healthy. He had pretty much no offensive line and a bad run game for most of the time he's there. I don't love Andy Dalton. I think he's a game manager, but I don't think Dak is that much different. We've put him on a pedestal because, yeah, he's done well, but he's had a ton of talent around him. He's had one of the best running backs in football since he came into the league. He's had the most consistently great offensive line since he's come into the league, and he's had pretty good receivers. So, again, not knocking Dak. I like him. I feel bad for him. It was a gruesome injury. I like him, the player. I just don't think this is a huge drop-off to Andy Dalton. I think, if anything, Andy Dalton might open up some things that Dak couldn't, and he might be able to hang tough against some better teams where we've seen Dak wilt in the face of adversity a lot against better playoff teams. So I don't think this is a huge knock. I think the biggest injury that you just kind of glazed over was the fact that Chandler Jones is injured. Chandler Jones has been the best rusher not named Aaron Donald in football for the last 5 years. That is a massive blow to an already suspect defense. So, if anything, we're looking at an over again because you're going to see Dalton with not a ton of pressure, and Arizona is going to be able to put up points against the Dallas defense because, quite frankly, high school football team might be able to score points against this Dallas defense. So I think the over's in play. I don't think this is an easy look for Arizona at all.
Yeah, I do. I wish. I still am so hesitant to back the Cowboys, even though this would be the type of situation I would want to, because I do think that Dalton is given a nice opportunity here to show something to save his career. This total's already gone up to 54 and a half. Is this a move on the over you want to make? I don't know.
I kind of want to.
Well, let's just see what we're getting from the licensed books here. I'm going to go to the total and see what we are being offered up here. This is the odds page at odds.com. And we are getting a 54. There's 154 left at FanDuel at minus 115. Alvin Smith says the play in this game is the over.
Yeah, I think I might be in on this too.
All right. Is that a confirmation? You don't have to. You're sitting 22-7.
Let me think about that while we're doing our recap here, because I've got question marks beside a few official plays.
All right. Well, let's do exactly that. That's every game broken down. We're going to start with the 1 p.m. games, and this is by far the least amount of action that I've had. Bengals Colts was no play. Falcons Vikings. I have question marks beside the Falcons. And I would like to pull the trigger. You get to prepare for Madison. I think that one of the things that happened with Pete Carroll is that when Dalvin Cook left, they started mainly putting themselves in pass defense and not respecting Madison. That's why Madison ran for the 112 yards. What do you think of that?
I like that take. I just wonder if it's true or not. You could be right. I mean, your logic is sound there. I just don't know if I necessarily agree with it. Look, Madison's done nothing super impressive up until this moment, so let's see him do it again, kind of thing. But I'm not. I like your take and I get it. I don't know if I'm completely sold on it.
Well, I'm not gonna move on it yet. Okay, then we have Broncos, Patriots. Still waiting for information. It's not on the board. Then we come to Washington Giants. No move for either of us.
I do like that team total under for the Giants at 22.5. I want to think on that a little bit, but I might add that to my card. I see Danny Dimes really struggling against this front seven. So I forget which capper in the chat pulled that up earlier, but I think that was a really nice take, and I might go that route.
All right, that is a possibility here. Then we have Ravens Eagles. Whale Capper got in on the Ravens at -7. That's moved, and no move at this point for either of us. That total 47.5. You can get that. The leading indicator books are saying it's going up to 48, but it's still at 47 at a bunch of books. Total's very interesting there. That total going over is quite interesting because what we've seen is that the road teams who are capable of offense deliver it because they're able to hear all the play calling, all the changes.
Yeah, it's been a unique COVID season in that road teams definitely have not an advantage because they still got to travel, but they're not facing those crowd noises. So yeah, those overs with solid offenses on the road are good plays.
Yeah. I wonder if this is a nice spot. All right, I'm going to take some time on that. God, this is a tricky card. Then we have the Steelers. You took full game -3.5. You were thinking about doubling up on the first half. Are you going to double up?
I'm going to double up on this. I like this spot here.
All right, we have a double up from Bebsy. I'm just going to quickly line shop for him here at odds.com. Let me find this. There we go. All right, first half. Let's pull it up for you. God, that total in that Ravens-Eagles game. I just have a funny feeling it could be a 27-20 final. Or the Ravens could start really putting up numbers against that weak Eagles defense. All right, first half. Sorry, taking me a second here. First half. Let's get it. Bebsy for the Steelers, a -2.5 at -118. And that is available at BetMGM. So I'm going to lock you in there.
Yes, sir.
First half minus 2.5, minus 118 at BetMGM. Out of curiosity, we don't have Bet365 up there. Why don't we just quickly see what Bet365 would offer you there? And, oh, wow. Better line, minus 2.5 and minus 110. Good thing I did that. At Bet365. Alrighty. Well, I'm still hesitant at this point. I did not like what I saw against the Eagles. I don't dislike it by any means. I'm not pulling the trigger. I thought I was going to, but I just paused. I did roll with you on the Panthers minus 2.5. You got it at DraftKings at minus 114. And then we have Lions, Jags. And this total is too high. And I am going to pull the trigger. Are you going to say something, Bebsy?
Yeah, I'm not trying to sway you in any way, but I had mentioned it. One of the guys in the chat mentioned it. And then 10 minutes later, when Whale Capper joined us, he said the same thing. And it's that the Steelers just bully the shit out of the Browns. And they've done that for a long time now. And I think one team is good and can play, and the other team is still learning. That's why I like this play. And it was backed up by, I think, a Browns fan in the chat. And then, 10, 15 minutes later, Whale Capper comes on and says the exact same thing. I just feel like it's a good spot. I understand your apprehension because the Browns have looked great.
I'm certainly not going to make a move on the Browns. I just want a little bit more time to digest it at this point.
And Al Cervic asked if there had ever been an NFL game played on a Tuesday before. And 2010, the Eagles played the Vikings on a Tuesday.
And the outcome?
I don't know. I didn't look at the score. I just looked up if they had ever played on a Tuesday before.
All right, I am going to.
Only other time in 70 years that there's been a game on a Tuesday.
I am going to make a move, I think, on the Texans when it comes out. I think the Titans are going to be overvalued. I'm also not going to make a move immediately. I'm going to check out the first hour or two that's on the board and see where the money's going. But I like the Texans to keep it within 4. And then
we'll be head-to-head if that's where it comes out, because I just don't have any trust in Houston, even with Bob gone.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Dennis Garcia says Cleveland's been terrible for 20 years. They're not terrible this year. Mr. Nodal says time for the Browns to punch the bulky Steelers in the mouth or continue to be the same old Browns.
Dennis Garcia, I agree with you, but would you have said the same thing after week 1?
Then we have Bebsy on the Packers minus 2. And that total Green Bay Tampa has gone up 2.5 points. Too much for me to make a move on. All right. James Lowe will answer your question in a second. And then Rams, Niners. I expect the move to be made on our Sunday show at 11 a.m. Then we have Chiefs, Bills. And Cardinals, Cowboys. No moves on those 3 games, Bebsy.
Yeah, I need some time to digest that over on the Cards Cowboys, but I do kind of like that, and I'm leaning towards it, but I need to stew on that one for a bit. I mean I can't overstate how much of an injury concern Chandler Jones is. Like that is catastrophic for that defense. Like He's so criminally underrated. Nobody ever talks about him because he plays for Arizona, but he is so good and he's so integral to that defense. That is a major blow to them.
There we have it. Great to see you, Robert Cherry. Thank you for joining us. Ryan Sagan, thank you for joining us. And a question from James Lill says, you guys like the Ravens versus Eagles? Feels like a trap game. It doesn't, to me, feel like a trap game. I still think the Ravens are kind of smarting from that bad loss to the Chiefs. And
look, the Ravens pump teams that aren't great.
They do.
And Philly's not great. It's just, and you know, I said this in the breakdown earlier, it's 2 weeks in a row I've seen MVP caliber Wentz. He has played out of his mind. He's put the team on his back. I don't know if he has another game in him. And I don't know if he can do that against a very talented, very balanced Ravens defense. They might just beat him up. And I think it was Prince in the city who said, you know, how good is he if he gets hit? And yeah, Wentz could very well get injured by this Ravens defense. So I think it's a really tough spot. The Ravens, logically speaking, should absolutely pound Philadelphia. I can't help but be a little bit inspired by the way Wentz has played 2 weeks in a row.
It says stop and Capitals. And Bebsy is going to be making a move possibly on the Chiefs when this line opens up. All righty.
What do you mean stop, Prince of the City? I'm agreeing with you.
No, he wants you to stop talking nice about Wentz.
Yeah, I don't like the guy. He's gross, but Jesus, he's played great 2 weeks in a row.
All right, and let's get to best bet time. I mean, this is God, I didn't realize how difficult this card was when I was, setting up my worksheet. What is your? Do you have a best bet on this card?
I don't know. Even the stuff I really like the way Green Bay's playing, so that kind of feels like a best bet for me. And I really like the Steelers stomping Cleveland, but Cleveland's been playing well. They have been playing well, so I'm not gonna go. Those are bets I like, and I'm pretty confident with. It's just this is a hard card, and I'm with you. Earlier when I was looking at this, I was like, oh, there's a lot of action, and the more I started breaking these down, I had a lot of tough times with it.
Okay. Well, we've got lots of time to work on this card. We'll be back on Sunday, and I need these Braves to hold up for me. Big thank you to Whale Capper. A big thank you to Bebsy. I would say that my best bet at this point, and I know it'd be crazy with these two teams that are so poor defensively, but I think that number is way too high. I shouldn't say way too high. I think it's 3 points too high in Lions-Jaguars total. So I'm very interested in what that Texans line is going to be, but at this point, I like the under 54.5 in Lions-Jags at this point. All righty. Great stuff, Bebsy. Can't wait to work with you on Sunday. Any last words for these great cappers in the chat?
As always, thanks for joining us, gents. You guys make this show fun for me. I'm very sorry to Nutflush Allen that you did not hit my over on Brady bashing. He took a lot of heat this week, so I felt I didn't need to jump on him. But I appreciate you making bets on that. Yeah, you guys are absolute diamonds. I love coming here and chatting with you guys every week. Jimmy, great show, buddy. As always, you are the diamond.
Oh, you're a good man. You're a good man. Bebsy sitting at 22-7, running hot, baby. And we'll catch you guys on Sunday, and there will be some additions made during the week on our Twitter. So do follow Bebsy here. I'm going to pop his Twitter handle in the chat for you guys to jump on. Let me get that right now. It's at Rob_Bebenek. Also, Bebenek has a new album that just popped off just a couple months ago. Bebsy, you want to tell us a little bit about that album?
Has it been a couple months already? I think it was. I think it's only been a month, maybe a little bit more. I lose track of this shit, but yeah, my debut comedy album is out there. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. You could punch in my name. It's called Everything Is Fine, and you know what? It's pretty fucking good. It's a pretty good album. After 13 years in comedy, I finally decided to put out an album. Thankfully, got it recorded before COVID, and so far the reviews have been great. So check it out, or fucking don't. I don't care.
Shout out to all the cappers joining us. Trey Franklin, Robert Cherry, Prince of the City, Mr. Know-It-All, Mr. Gokester, Al Cervic, Nutflush, Alan Lance LaRose, Gate Pass, Key, Sean C, James Lil, Buzznut721, Mike Rowe, Chunky says, who you got, Green Bay or Tampa? Bebenek has moved on the Green Bay Packers at -2. Dennis Garcia, thank you guys. Mr. KCOH MMA, Mark Unkefer. Let's stay hot, Bebsy. Stay hot, Bebsy. 22-7. Thank you guys for joining us. Leche. Hey, those bookmakers. Let's get paid in full.